So I'm excited, right? I'm excited anytime I get to introduce and celebrate someone at the same time. So our first panelist is Captain Tysheika L. Shaw Williams. And let me just tell you a little bit about her. Captain Shaw is with the Miramar Police Department, and it specializes in restorative justice with a focus on bridging the gap between juveniles and law enforcement. I am going to read her full bio. She is currently engaged in a passion project called Sister Circle that highlights women of leadership on her social media platforms, talking about humanizing officers, right? Captain Shaw is a Miami, Florida native. And as a teenager, after witnessing the strained relationship between police officers and her community, she made a promise to herself to pursue a career in law enforcement in order to improve the community relations. And that is what she's doing. Captain Shaw began her career in 2005 with the Margaret Police Department as a victim advocate, domestic violence practitioner. And after receiving a master's degree in criminology in 2008, she joined the Miramar Police Department, where she happily serves her fellow officers and community today. During her tenure with the Miramar Police Department, Captain Shaw worked in the capacity of road patrol, safe streets, and community resource officer. And during that time, she used every opportunity to give back to her community by volunteering for charity events and serving as a mentor for Miramar's Dream, which stands for Determination Reveals Everlasting and Achievable Memories program for teenage girls. Upon being promoted to sergeant, Shaw supervised patrol officers in the Community Service Aid Unit, which led to her receiving the Excellence in Policing Service Award in 2018. Following this achievement, Shaw was transferred to the Criminal Investigations Division Unit, where she provided direct supervision to detectives in the Special Victims Unit. And during her time in the Detective Bureau, she oversaw cases such as sex trafficking, missing persons, and child abuse cases, which resulted in her receiving a second Excellence in Policing Service Award. In 2020, Shaw was selected to serve in the prestigious role of Internal Affairs Investigator for the Office of the Chief. She was recently promoted to captain. Her current roles include serving as a public information officer, recruiter, and community relations coordinator for the Miramar Police Department. Continuing with her community outreach, Captain Shaw serves as co-chair for South Florida's Justice Project and is a restorative justice facilitator with the Urban League of Broward County. She's a committee member for the Girls Coordinating Council with the Children's Services of Broward County and a board member of the Florida Restorative Justice Association. Happily, Captain Shaw is currently working under the mentorship of Dr. Agatha Cataballo, who's the director of Maurice A. Fair Institute for Civic Leadership at Florida International University. Captain Shaw is a mother, a wife to a fellow law enforcement officer, and she is a proud breast cancer survivor, yogi, and world traveler who serves as a mentor to the other women undergoing chemotherapy. And we are in October celebrating Breast Cancer Awareness Month. Thank you so much, Captain Shaw, for being here. And thank you for all the work that you have been doing and really staying true and committed to your promise to yourself as a team. So thank you. Welcome, everyone. Captain Shaw.
Thank you, everyone. It is a pleasure to be here. Good afternoon. And thank you all for your forgiveness and graciousness of yesterday that I couldn't make it, but it was for a phenomenal reason, which is why today Tomay is allowed to call me Captain. So I am just ecstatic to be here. Thank you so much. And I look forward to just talking to everyone and hearing your voices and just really working together. Thank you.
You are so welcome. Now I am going to bring back William Jackson, who just dropped some jewels on us yesterday at the end of the panel. Like, it was just amazing. So let me just tell you about him for those who are new. For this session today, William holds a Bachelor of Arts in Political Science and Economics from Florida State University and a Master of Public Administration from Florida Atlantic University. He is an Association for Public Policy Analysis and Management's 2020 Equity and Inclusion Student Fellow and member of Phi Alpha Alpha Honor Society of the National Association of Schools for Public Affairs and Administration. Thank God I know my alphabets. William currently is a public affairs PhD candidate at Florida International University and serves as a graduate teaching assistant within the Public Policy and Administration Department. He is committed to serving individuals, families, and communities that have limited access and opportunity due to political, economic, and social factors. His interests and research are in the areas of social equity, political control of bureaucracy, bureaucratic politics, oh my goodness, and social construction. William focuses on examining racial inequities within the juvenile and criminal justice system within American society. Mr. Jackson served 2 years with the FIU George M. Perez Metropolitan Center as a graduate research assistant and 12 years with the Urban League of Broward County. In his last role at the Urban League, William led and managed the Community Justice Division. In addition, William has served on the Broadway Diversion Coalition as co-chair, Southeast Florida Crime Prevention Association, Florida Crime Prevention Association, Florida Restorative Justice Association as board vice president, and is currently a member of the National Association for Community and Restorative Justice. He is also the founder and board president of the Justice Project of South Florida, which aims to reduce the arrests and incarceration of youth, increase cultural competency, racial equity, and social justice, as well as promote positive interactions between law enforcement and communities of color. William, welcome back and thank you for being with us today.
Thank you for having me again. Looking forward to today's discussion and conversations. Thanks again, Tomay.
You're welcome. Now, before we jump in, I do understand that you both are going to provide a special experience for us today.
Yes, we're actually going to do a presentation on the Justice Project so that our fellow community of RJ and our police officers that are with us today could be informed on the work that we're doing here in South Florida and even throughout the state of Florida. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to allow our executive chair to take lead. I'm going to share my computer right quick and we will get it moving. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, everyone. So yes, William and I work together at the Justice Project of South Florida. And I can tell you, this came as a brainchild of him. We owe everything in our gratitude to William. While he was working at the Urban League of Broward County, he had this idea, and he will get into how it came to be. But we are so grateful for the work that he put into having this vision. And anyone know, having a vision and bringing it to life it is not easy. It is not easy, and it takes a very special person to do that. So we're so excited to be there. So May, you were reading my bio, and I'm like, same thing as Dr. Johnson. Who is this person? So everyone knows me as well as I know myself at this point. So we're really excited. And now it's going to start our intro to the Justice Project of South Florida.
As Ty was just speaking, she actually serves as our executive co-chair along with Priscilla Brown, who just had a little one a couple weeks ago. So shout outs to Priscilla, and myself, who is the founder and board president. It really brings a smile to my face to be able to share what we're doing here in South Florida, because what we've been doing has just been phenomenal and great for the last 6 years. we pretty much started out this initiative when it related, well, the idea came because of what Dr. Johnson was speaking of earlier, when it concerns the historical harm. And one of the things that we know that has existed here in the state of Florida, and we pretty much are seeing the outcomes of those things that have existed here in our past, relations, race relations. And one of the things I could express is that the race relations here in the state of Florida and across the country, they mirror one another. And then also the disparities in the juvenile and criminal justice system. During my time at the Urban League of Broward County, I saw that most of the young people that were coming under my supervision were mostly Black and brown youth. And one of the questions I would have was like, why do we have so many young people of color coming through our judicial system here in Broward County? And then the third thing that actually sparked outrage across the nation, but also within our respective communities, was the murder of Trayvon Martin. He was actually born and raised in South Florida, and this shook us locally to the core, especially those who knew and know his parents and knew this young man. Then there began a series of documented police killings of unarmed Black people across the nation. And I would probably say that the reason we were able to see this is because of the fact of having technology that allows us to do recordings, that allows us to see what is actually happening in American society. What is actually happening in regards to the relations between law enforcement and people of color. I think what has happened has been the case since the inception of American society. However, this has not really become evident or displayed until we had this invention of being able to take videos with our own personal cell phones and to be able to show the public what is actually happening during these encounters. And then we also, to address some of the things that were going on, the Urban League of Broward County, we hosted a community-wide event in April of 2015, just to get a feel like what is happening, because we already were informed by our young people that if what was happening across the nation would happen in our backyard, such as incidents of what happened with Eric Garner or Michael Brown in Ferguson or Tamir Rice or Freddie Gray, our young people felt that they had to do something revolutionary. They felt that they had to do something that would make a change so that they could be heard. So we want to take what they were thinking and what they were sharing from their experiences and bring it to the table across our community along with law enforcement. And out of this event, it was evident that there was a huge gap between Black community and law enforcement within Broward County. So one of the things I pondered was like, what can we do to address these issues? What can we do to address this lack of communication, this gap between law enforcement and communities of color, and this sense of no community between the two entities? And what inspired me and what I felt and what I still feel today is the solution was when I had the opportunity to attend the National Association for Community and Restorative Justice conference that was held here in Fort Lauderdale in 2015. And that's what pretty much gave birth to the Justice Project of South Florida. So as I stated before, just a little bit of background of the Justice Project. It was created in 2015 to serve as a vessel to facilitate meaningful and positive interactions between law enforcement and communities of color by using restorative practices as a framework for dialogue. This call to action was definitely a result of a community event that addressed the increased tensions between law enforcement and marginalized communities. And based on the feedback from the attendees, which were mainly community members and our young people, more specifically our youth that were in diversion or that went through diversion, it was evident that local issues mirrored the problems surrounding race and police relations across the country. Now I'm going to go ahead and allow Captain Shaw to speak on our vision, mission, and purpose.
So everyone, just to give you an understanding of how I got involved as a law enforcement officer, I actually attended that event at the Urban League while William was there. And I engaged in my first open dialogue conversation with the youth as a regular road patrol officer. And I was hooked from that moment. I had no idea what I was walking into. I had no idea what the concept of a circle was. I was just being guided. My chief saw this event and he said, you know, Ty, go check it out. And the love and the energy and the synergy that was there in that room between myself in a uniform and all 15 other of those juveniles. And I also had another officer from Fort Lauderdale and BSO. The love that grew in that room from the time we sat in there was, what is this all about? It was new for everyone. I mean, William knew what it was about and we trusted his judgment, but that was our first time there. And going from doubt and questioning, what is this, to leaving sand. And I remember saying this. I said, this is my first event. This will not be my last. You have me committed to this work for life. And I can say 6 years later, we are still going strong and better than ever. So that's how I got involved with the Justice Project. Having left their side since that day. And the Justice Project has allowed me to grow in every position I've ever received, the promotion I've gotten. Justice Project has come along right with me. And I will continue to do that. So our vision, just to understand, and this is our overall goal of the Justice Project. The vision is to eliminate the negative perceptions, stereotypes, and interactions between law enforcement officers and communities of color. The mission is to reach its vision. We aim to reduce the arrest and incarceration of youth, increase cultural competency, racial equity, and social justice, as well as promote positive interactions between law enforcement officers and communities of color. And the purpose of what we do is to provide police youth dialogues, restorative justice practices trainings, cultural sensitivity workshops, restorative justice peace circles, and promote the undoing, dismantling racial inactivities. So when we say that, it's nice to see that on paper, but how do you do that? And what does that mean? And it means the actual physical meeting of two different parties, as Dr. Johnson pointed out, with two different ideologies. Not only are they separated by title, which is police officers' positions and juvenile, they're separated by class, they're separated by color. Then we get into gender, and that's a whole another instance of this. So we actually physically come in the same room, uncomfortable, because a lot of officers that we have no idea. We pick a location, be that at a church, we go out into the community, or we're at the Urban League. And it is a full day of events and conversations, and there is a purpose to it. And that's where that open, honest dialogue come in at. That's where we try to break down stereotypes. And so a room full of very different people come together. And as bad as an idea that may sound at the beginning, it actually turns into one of the most beautiful experiences you can possibly imagine, because anyone would tell you to build any relationship, communication is key. We say that in marriages fall apart because of a lack of communication. Relationships fall apart because of a lack of communication. So we really get down to the origins and the originality of what it is to build a relationship and a friendship, and that's communication. And in turn, that communication leads out into the community, when that officer goes out into the community after they speak to a group of juveniles who say, hey, when you yell at me, it makes me feel like you're belittling me. It makes me feel like I am not worth it of a human being for you to speak to me with respect. And the officer never even think about it until he's in the room and allow the juvenile to say that. So when they go out there on the road in the community, in those streets, they think twice before they speak to a juvenile in any type of way, because they realize they have feelings, they're humans, and they deserve that, but they never thought about it. So really, if I can give the essence of what we do with our vision, mission, and purpose, it's exactly that, to open the lines of communication. And once we do that, we allow the spirit and the energy of that communication to do the work, to break down the barriers. And pretty much that sums it up with our vision, mission, and purpose. And so what's exciting is that on the next slide, these are all our community partners. Understand, William started from the bottom, and I like to say now he's here. So right now he started with just himself at the Urban League, this young, educated man who saw this from going to that conference and said, man, we need to bring this. We need this locally in our community. So understand, all of these community partners you've seen on here, we had to sell this to them. They had to be in a room with us and understand that this is real. So we did it one partner at a time. And William reached out. And that's how he hooked me, one partner at a time. And let me tell you, once you enter the room with the Justice Project and our peace circles, and once you see the work that we're doing, you will be hooked. So I invite you all and I challenge you all to meet with us. And I know a lovely young lady had asked, how are you guys still doing this restorative justice thing with the pandemic? I was so happy she asked that, because we're still active. We're active just like this. We got creative. The Urban League gave us a base with computers, and almost every child has a cell phone. So now we're doing virtual escape rooms where we have officers and students play against each other to see who can get out the virtual escape room. And there we're still building that relationship. So, and what virtual has done is allow us to reach more people. So, and the love is still there, which is what I found out. So I hope you can understand my energy and love that I'm giving to you now. And I hope you can feel it through this Zoom meeting. The love is there. So we're creative with the kids. We have Zoom with them. We put a whole on this year, as a matter of fact, on Martin Luther King Day, we had a whole ceremony, virtual Zoom here at our department, where they went into rooms and breakout rooms. And we had at least 80 children. And thanks to the blessings of my department, we were able, if the child participated, not only did they get community service hours, but we also sent them a $25 gift card. We were able to get a grant for that. If they participated from beginning to end, they got that gift card mailed to them from the Justice Project of South Florida and the Urban League with their help. So these are our community partners. So whenever we have an event, we have someone from one of these agencies there, and either they're peace circle facilitators or they're participants or they're volunteers, and they're helping us do the work. And like I said before, I challenge you to consider coming with us. Come and see what we're all about during one of our events. Thank you.
So as Ty was speaking on, Captain Ty was speaking on, these are some of our activities and signature events. Pretty much from 2015 till now, we've been having monthly general meetings with members and partners. We just started having members this year because we were incorporated last year as our own government entity, and we still have partners who also serve aligned with us in what we're doing as a project. Also, we have our police youth dialogues, which take place with our providers and law enforcement agencies, where our young people who are mostly in diversion programs have the opportunity to engage and connect with law enforcement and the philosophy behind this is basically that our young people have come in contact with law enforcement in a negative way. So what is the best way to have them come in contact with law enforcement in a positive way? Because if we just let the negative stick, and exist, that is their perception. That is their reality. However, if we can change that through the programming that we have available, then we have a young person who understands the purpose of policing and understands the purpose of why they probably did what they did and why they had to take accountability, but also maybe why they had an officer who might have was just not in the best of moods that day when they were arrested. So this creates a dialogue that, in our opinion, creates an opportunity to build productive citizens. Then we have the RJ trainings that we have for law enforcement. We have our partners or our members who will facilitate these trainings for different law enforcement agencies, along with what we also started doing this year are team talks. Because of COVID, because we are in this virtual space, we have weekly team talks with young people who not only are in high school, but some of them have also moved on to college. So what we see there is that we have even college students participating in these team talks that we're having now, I guess, across the nation. And then our signature events, our first event, as Captain Ty was explaining, Operation Trust. That's what pretty much got her connected with us and brought her to the fold. Operation Community, Humanity, and Breaking Barriers. And we were in the planning stages of having Operation Connection, but that was postponed due to COVID. But these signature events are actually an opportunity for us to focus on an issue, a problem that may be at hand when it concerns law enforcement and our young people. And then we find ourselves breaking into smaller groups and having our restorative justice circles. And we bring recommendations back to the table towards the end of the event that are utilized by law enforcement and our partners to pretty much build this sense of community that's needed within our respective communities, within our respective local communities. And pretty much, I'm going to allow our captain to speak on some of the awards and recognitions.
So before I do, everyone, I know that William mentioned some key points in terms of we do have officer trainings. And if I can tell you what that looks like is that here next month, as a matter of fact, on November 16th, we are hosting one where it is limited to officers, but we have a clinical psychiatrist who's coming from strategy sessions to come into our PD. And I'm actually now taking officers who can volunteer to come. My chief was so gracious. I'm even allowed, if those officers are off, I'm allowed to pay them overtime because you have to entice people. So a nice friendly budget worked, but I got that budget because my chief saw the work that we were doing. So I get officers to come in, and it's about 4 hours where we break down the concept of what a peace circle is. And a peace circle is something that it was an indigenous practice that we saw that was used to deal with community issues. So whenever there was any injustices within a tribe, they will have a community meeting in a circle, and they will determine how to resolve conflict that way. So this practice is not brand new. You know, we're actually taking it, but it is tried and true from indigenous people of America. Forgive me, I don't say Native Americans because they're not American or they're indigenous. And so we take that and we teach the officers what does that mean. And my favorite part is getting officers who I know will be very uncomfortable about conversations with race. Because it's easy to get people that look like us who understand that, but it's always my goal to get people that looks opposite of the kids in the room, which tend to be, as it was mentioned a million times, children or juveniles of color, Latino or Black, and my job is to get that officer that don't look like them to explain to them, for them to have a conversation. And so we're in this room in the officer training. What we're doing, we're prepping them for what's to come. We're prepping them that a child may say to you, well, you're a white officer. Why do you stop me? I feel like you stopped me because I'm Black. I feel like you don't like me because I'm Black. And then in turn, that officer gets the opportunity right then and there to explain to that juvenile, listen, I actually was radioed for a call. And I actually saw you walking in the area during this time. It had nothing to do with your race. It had all to do with that call. That officer at that time can give that juvenile an understanding as to why. Now, this doesn't take away from the fact that there are some officers who would stop a child because they're a person of color. These are facts. And so what we do is be honest. You have to be honest. You know, there are some discriminatory practices. Officers of color have to deal with discriminatory practices within agencies. So if they treat officers of colors like that, what do you think they're doing in the community? But the only way these things can come out and be addressed is that we have to talk about it. So we prep these officers for it. And I even had an officer one time to be so candid to say, you know what? I have ideologies like this because my dad is a total racist. He don't like Black people. He don't like Jewish people. He don't like Hispanic people. And I didn't realize until I heard these juveniles speak, and I heard you speak, that I had these implicit biases. So we teach them about implicit biases. And all of this is prior to the actual event that we hosted here virtually for 2020, and we're going to host 2021. We did host one virtually and next year. But the whole point of that officer training is to let them understand we're going to put you in an uncomfortable situation. You're here. Be honest. Be honest. Because one thing we learned about juveniles, they see through disingenuous people. They will not connect to you if you try to give them the old attaboy response. Well, I was just doing my job as a law enforcement officer. No, be genuine, be real. So the whole point of the officer training that we have is to prep them for the actual circle, just to give you an idea of what we do. All right, so with that being said, I am so proud to speak on the awards and recognitions that we have received. And when I say we, I mean my William. You know, I always give him credit for the Justice Project because I just love it so much. Imagine, and just so you know, I became a law enforcement officer not because I was in awe of the badge and not because I liked what I see. A lot of my counterparts and my coworkers say I always wanted to be a law enforcement officer. I grew up, I always looked up to law enforcement officers. Understand that I became a law enforcement officer because I didn't like what I saw. And I didn't realize till now that I actually became the change that I wanted to see. See, I was 17 years old when I just saw the behavior. They were cursing on scenes. They were driving past people that was asking for help. I grew up in Miami Gardens, and I'm sorry, we're national. So you don't know what that is, but you can imagine. And just seeing how they treated the people in the community. I remember officers calling my mom the B word in front of me twice. And by the way, it wasn't a white officer who did it. It was a Black officer who did it. And then a white officer graced me years later and called her a B too. So I have both experiences. So me becoming a law enforcement officer was me being the change that I wanted to see. And I had no idea that that's what I was doing, by the way, until recently. So now for the first time, and it's the first time I ever realized that I am a change agent. And because of the program like the Justice Project, it's given me purpose. Because I will admit, coming into law enforcement and seeing how reckless it is with the culture, sometimes I felt defeated. I'm one female, and I knew I was here. I wasn't here because I wanted to make friends, or I wanted a pat on the back door because I wanted to be this big, bold law enforcement officer controlling the community. I came here because I knew that there was something wrong with the relationships with the community. And sometimes I felt defeated. I have been in this game 16 years. And it wasn't until I found the Justice Project that I finally found a way. And that is the open, honest dialogue between law enforcement officers with a focus on juveniles. So you can imagine why I'm excited to be here. Imagine you living your life and you find your purpose and you realize that it's your purpose. It's a beautiful thing. Because of the work of the Justice Project, they were nominated for the American Civic Collaboration Awards. I'm going to read this slow because I realize I've messed up on some words by going too fast, in 2017. And also, they had the Collective Impact for Youth Award by the 9th Annual Nonprofit Awards in 2019. Model organization by the National Association of Community and Restorative Justice, and that was in 2021. And just this Saturday that passed, William went to an event thinking that we were just going to go there and just meet the community. And suddenly he received another award for Community Advocate, the Community Advocate Award by Carlton B. Moore Freedom Foundation. And let me tell you something. It's been 6 years. We are doing the work. And I am so proud of the Justice Project. Thank you.
Thank you, Ty. And now we will go ahead and open up for questions. Tomay, would you like to facilitate the questions for us?
Of course.
Thank you.
Thank you for such a powerful presentation. And we do have a question from Jay Thompson. He says, love the virtual escape room creativity. How can we get more information about that type of programming? Also, how are the young people supported in their leadership to become facilitators?
Willie, you want to take that one?
How about you speak on the escape room first, and I can speak on the piece with the young people.
Okay, the virtual escape room, we're hosting our first official one in 2 weeks in Miramar, but it's actually done through the Urban League. So they've hosted about 5 of them. So we still have a partnership with the Urban League of Broward County. I can most definitely get you connected. And we have an agreement with an actual, I want to say a company that does the virtual escape rooms. So Tomay, I don't know if my information is available for him to send me an email, and I will connect you with everything.
And in regards to the leadership question for our young people, what we actually try to do is pretty much provide the youth dialogues with our young people between law enforcement, but we also try to find those young people that have gone through diversion programs or currently going through diversion programs who could be able to serve as leaders, especially when it concerns our annual events. And these are the individuals that we promote and push out there to the public to be able to share like the recommendations and things that might have happened within a respective circle or within a group between law enforcement and the community. But also some of the programming that already exists by providers, we also try to assist there and help them with their young people. Like at the Urban League, you had a program like the iFuture program where young leaders were able to come out and volunteer and connect with the Justice Project. But also what we're starting to see right now is our college students wanting to get engaged and involved. We just had a young lady who just graduated from Florida State University who was like taking lead on a project of us getting involved in. And she's like, I'm in the process of applying for law school, but wherever you need me, I'm there. So we're doing things in that area. And just to give you guys a snapshot of things, everything that we do with the Justice Project of South Florida is voluntary. No one is being paid. There is no funding. This is just an organization of people who want to do this work. And we're just pulling resources from our respective agencies, from ourselves to just do this great work that we know is needed within our local communities.
Thank you so much for responding to that question. And again, congratulations to you, William, for the last award you received. This is so powerful. We have a couple more questions. So we have Althea Seaborn is asking, what community youth changes has Miramar experienced as a result of the great work you are doing?
To be honest, which is so exciting, we actually work with the Miramar High School Magnet Program, Criminal Justice Magnet Program. And so we get a lot of our referrals from there. And we actually have the juveniles and kids applying with us. So I always challenge them. I say, listen, it's one thing for y'all to be in this room. But I tell them, I said, I have about 20 years left in this career. Now you know me. Get with me. Come and apply. Because if you don't like what law enforcement officers are doing, become that law enforcement officer and do it. And can I tell you, they accept my challenge and I help them. I will assign them to an officer to actually get them through the testing, through the programming. And so that was one of the most, I wasn't expecting that. I will admit. So now I have kids out in the community to also say, they call me Sarge. Sarge, don't forget, I got 2 more years left in high school and I'm coming to apply. So I'm seeing this rejuvenation. Well, not even rejuvenation. This is just a juvenation because this is a first for me where kids of color are actually seeing themselves as being capable to be law enforcement officers because they're realizing that there's nothing different about it. They're human. And then they're saying to themselves, well, if I was a law enforcement officer, this is how I would do it. So I say, well, come on. What you waiting on? We're in this room. So I would say that's one of the things that I'm seeing. I'm actually working with a young man now to get him to take his CJ bat. And if they say to me, Sergeant Shaw, you told me to come, I get them with an officer to help them out with testing, physical agilities and everything like that. But I also to encourage them to get a college degree first because I realized the high school thing, they were coming too fast. And I said, no, get your degree first and come see me. Remind me of this conversation. And just the overall interaction from the Miramar High School students by them knowing us, they're not afraid to come walk up to us. They're not afraid to yell out our name. Hey, Sergeant Shaw, how you doing? And it's love that we're receiving back because some of the juveniles, they were afraid to even say hi. So I remember one year, that was my biggest request from the juveniles. I said, if you see an officer, if you don't mind, just wave and say hi and see what will happen. They accepted that challenge. And I'm seeing more of an encouragement for them to interact with us and feeling comfortable. Now, it's not perfect. Of course not. And we are dealing with this one set of students in this area, but it's my most dangerous area that I have the most shootings. So we need to connect with them. And it feels good. It feels good. I will say that.
Thank you for that response. So I definitely want to give you this last question before we transition. I appreciate you so much. I'm enjoying. I was back here taking notes like, oh, I can't do this and do that, but I did. Okay. So Dr. Kerry Clamp says, you guys are so amazing and inspiring. Can you share how widespread this is in your area? And then, okay, so we have a couple of questions within one. And how many officers are involved in this project? And are you seeing a cultural change in how officers police in the broader community beyond this project?
I'll take lead on that one. I would say that we have grown tremendously within the last 6 years because when we started out, it was actually just my team and I, the Community Justice Division at the Urban League of Broward County. And we started reaching out to law enforcement and providers, but mostly it was providers that were leading this effort. When I say providers, I mean those who are in social services, who are working with the youth directly. And then we started working more closely with the City of Fort Lauderdale Police Department, and then eventually Miramar Police Department. And now we have several police departments that are members or partners throughout not just Broward County, but throughout South Florida, from the University of Miami up to Florida Atlantic University, which is in Palm Beach County. And we also have a member who lives in Central Florida. So we're starting to realize that our membership and our partnership is not just Fort Lauderdale or Broward County or Miramar. It actually is starting to expand throughout the whole state. And I'm sorry, can you repeat the second question, Tomay?
Yes, of course. How many officers are involved in this project? And are you seeing a cultural change in how officers police in the broader community beyond this project?
William,
I was,
with
oh, I'm
that
sorry.
one, just to touch on the cultural part, from because I'm actually boots on the ground. So, it is not just a justice project, but if an agency is involved in a program like this, they're already more than likely is a forward moving agency that believes in restorative justice. We have actual community resource officers assigned at our agency, about 9 of them. And so that's my agency alone. So I have the community resource officers, I have myself, and then I'm allowed to reach out to any officer to say, hey, we're having this event, get involved. So culturally, the shift started with our city wanting it. And then from there, we went out and we sought it. And my chief knew about the Urban League and sent me there. And that's when we had this great connection. So the shift started with the agency wanting to do better and do the right thing, if that makes sense to you. So the agencies that's a part of our program, they are there because they recognize the need for that cultural change. And it is grueling to change culture. So I know I smile and I'm enthusiastic, but it is slow to change culture. And really, and I'm inside the agency and I'm boots on the ground, but I can openly say to you that we adopted 8 Can't Wait in Broward County. And that came from the George Floyd verdict. We hosted several protests for Black Lives Matter. And my agency, we paid for the DJ, we paid for the water, and we had officers praying with Black Lives Matter protesters. So, and that was genuinely, to say that 10 years ago and 15 years ago, that would have never happened. I wouldn't have never been able to sit in a meeting. One time, 9 years ago, I had said that we're helping Black young men practice how to behave on traffic stops. And that was the most controversial statement running throughout the agency because I said the word Black. Now I was able yesterday to stand in my promotional ceremony and say, I am a Black female. And the crowd applauded. So culturally, for me, it's been over a decade, but I do see the shift, and that's because of my friends and my families at the Justice Project who give us resources. I wouldn't have known where to go next. I wouldn't have known what technique would work in terms of getting officers to change their perspectives. So that's just and thank you for allowing me, William, to answer that, because I feel I am the culture and it has changed, and I'm not afraid anymore to be proud of being a person of color and a law enforcement officer. And that was something that you just didn't say. And maybe 6 years ago, you couldn't say that. So a big cultural shift.
And when it concerns that number of law enforcement officers, we can't really give a number because we have at least 8 agencies that are members or partners. And from those agencies, they send out sometimes a different number of officers to engage in our respective programming. So it's hard to give an actual count on that. But at our events, we were probably, like at our first event, Operation Trust, we probably had over 50 officers that came out and engaged in that project. Just like our other signature projects and our trainings and even our community engagements with the young people and law enforcement. But if I had to give a number of who are those law enforcement officers that are continuously engaged, it's hard to give a number. But one thing I can say, we don't just have officers that are at the street level, but we have officers that are in leadership, like Captain Shaw, Major London, Assistant Chief Becker,
yes.
And these from different agencies, but these are the ones, that's why I said yesterday when it was mentioned that it starts from the bottom, but I think it starts from the bottom and the top, and we just have to meet and be able to speak the same language. And the culture, like I said before, we started working in this with the city of Fort Lauderdale. To be honest with you, it was like pulling teeth in a way because of the culture within that policing agency. Right now, because of the work that we do with the Justice Project, the department has received a new chief. Guess what? This new chief, I actually had the opportunity to speak with him a week ago, and he's pretty much like, whatever you need from me, we're here. My department is pretty much going to promote what you guys are already doing. This is going to be the culture of our agency. Mm-hmm. So sometimes you just have to be bold and go out there and just do the work that's needed, and others will follow. Things will fall in place. But one of the things I would say that helps with this are the relationships. None of this would be possible if we did not have the strong relationships we have and maintaining those relationships. Two of my staff at the time at the Urban League, when we started this initiative, when we started this project, guess what? They work now at Miramar Police Department, and they're still engaged in the Justice Project of South Florida. So it's the relationship building and people just connecting with other people that causes the change that we're seeing right now happening in South Florida.
Amen. Can you imagine? When I started, these two beautiful men that I met, they was actually Peace Circle facilitators, and they trained me, and they were working for Will, and they were just too phenomenal and engaged in the community. I recruited them. And I literally can say on the streets right now, I have two expert Peace Circle facilitators working in my agency on a law enforcement road patrol level. I have them out there in the community. And see, what's so beautiful, the officers that's working around them, they don't realize, I call it the power of proximity. I know having them there, they're doing something, because now other officers can see how they interact in the community. Other officers can see how they speak to children of color. And it's infectious. It's infectious because they're seeing the response of those children of color. Well, man, what they're doing is working. Maybe the way how I am isn't. It's those little things and those little nuggets on how we're breaking down and expanding our culture to openness, to understanding, and humility.
Wow. Thank you. That is so powerful. I'm just sitting here thinking, like, just from the beginning of Dr. Micah Johnson, I feel like this was a walk of answering the question, show me where the hope is. And that's what you are doing today. And I'm just so grateful for that. And I have one last question before we transition from Jay Thomas. He says, his question is, what is the opportunity for law enforcement to internally use restorative justice practices to address some of the systemic and institutional racism within departments that will create a sense of inclusion and belonging for officers of color?
Well, since I experienced that firsthand, and it was the open conversations, and I will say it was the push of the community. Pretty much it was the movement of the community saying, we want officers who look like us. And they didn't complain to the police department. They actually went to their elected officials. And they said, we're being stopped, but we don't know why. And when you have a community saying that to politicians, things move a little bit quicker than them saying it to the actual agency that has the police officers that don't look like them. So our movement and cultural shift really came from the community outcry, which it should have anyway. I have to be honest, as a young minority officer in the PD, there was no one for me to run to complain about. At that time, you have to survive. But with the shift of the community saying it, that gave me a voice. So you see, I got my voice from the people, and that made me realize that I should be treated as an equal within my department. So now I can sit with the chief and say, Chief, I was in roll call, and I don't like the way these officers were speaking about Black Lives Matter. We need to have a meeting, and we need to address that. And so that was because of the community's outcry. And to diversify ourselves, you have to have diversity. And I'm not talking about just Black people and Hispanics. I'm talking about a diverse group of people. And that's how you get the culture to start changing. Right now, we're so proud. We have several Muslim officers. That didn't exist when I started. There's no way they would touch us. But because the community demanded change, we have it. I am happy to say that we have our first 2 officers with dreadlocks. No way that would have flown. But because the community said, no, you represent us, and we want our officers to look like us, that gave us the push we need to shift the culture. And you know what? It's a beautiful thing, because I learn from different people. I learn from people that looks different from me, because it's a 2-way street. So our culture shift started from the community saying, this isn't working. We feel discriminated against. We don't feel that we're being treated fairly. So guess what? You remove that. So now when they get a ticket, or when an officer speak to them and go to the house, and not to say that we have all Black officers to respond to all Black community, all Asian officers to respond to, it doesn't work like that. That doesn't work. But we have a diverse group. So when officers come to the scene, they're going to see Black, they're going to see white, they're going to see Latino. It won't be that same rigid, just one race showing up throughout the community all the time. So our cultural change came from the demand from the community, who didn't demand the police department. They went to the people that count, the politicians. If I can lend that advice, if you want a cultural change in your police department, your community, don't go to the chief, because the chief can have the same mentality as the people that's there. Go to the elected officials. They're the ones that push it.
Thank you so much, Captain Shaw. Wow. William, thank you so much. We have to wrap up, right? Because you guys are about to facilitate a circle, and I know people are going to be excited to jump into this circle with you. And I just want to say thank you to all of our plenary session attendees. Thank you for showing up. Again, thank you, Dr. Micah Johnson. And I'm going to transition it really quick over to Stephanie. And as she come on, I just want to say thank you to Sydney Pidgeon, because she was very instrumental in helping the behind the scenes take place. So I'll pass it to you, Stephanie. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Tomay. And thank you, Dr. Johnson, Captain Shaw, William Jackson. It's just so inspiring and wonderful to hear about Police Youth Dialogue, to hear about the Justice Project in South Florida, and to have this concrete example. And I'll just quickly say that something that really struck me was you had this one particular slide that was all the members and partners. And it struck me that, you're building ground up, but this is what it looks like when a community comes together, and just how important it is to have that community involved. And it was just so wonderful to see that. It blew me away. You think there'll be a little list of a few partners, but to see so many people involved and supporting such great work, it's just fantastic. Tomay, thank you also for such fabulous facilitation again today. And thank you all participants for being here. Just as a note, if your questions didn't get answered, we are actually keeping track of all of the questions, and we will be asking our panelists and facilitators to answer those questions. And so if they're not available during the actual institute, we will absolutely post them on the website. So you have the restorativepolicing.com link in the chat that we encourage you to please go back to. So for the plenary session, people who've joined us, thank you so much. And for those of you that have the link for the circle, we'll see you shortly. You can log off and log in. And again, special thanks and acknowledgement to BJA, because we wouldn't be able to have this conversation without their support. So heartfelt thanks. Take care, and we'll see you soon.